clutter doesn't crash into your home all at once. It tiptoes in, quiet, polite, and invisible. It's the unopened envelope you meant to read. The Amazon box you never unpacked. The birthday gift from your neighbor you didn't have the heart to return. No single item feels like a problem, but suddenly your space feels tighter, your surfaces more crowded, and your breathing room gone. You didn't buy furniture. You didn't go on shopping spree. But here you are, surrounded by things that weren't there a month ago. Ever look around and think, when did all this happen? It's not your imagination. Clutter doesn't need years. It just needs 30 silent days. And that's the key. If you learn how to manage the next 30 days of stuff, you'll never have to dig your way out again. No marathon cleanouts. No guilt-ridden purges. Just one simple shift in how you handle what enters your home today. Because what piles up isn't just junk, it's unmade decisions. And today, we're going to show you the one method that makes those decisions easy. If that sounds like the kind of piece you've been missing, tap like, hit subscribe, and let's make your home feel like home again, 1 month at a time. Odessa never thought of herself as someone who struggled with clutter. At 73, she kept a tidy home in a quiet corner just outside Asheville, where the mornings smelled like pine and the porch creaked like an old friend. Her shelves weren't overflowing, and her closets weren't stuffed to bursting. But something always felt off. The dining room table stayed buried under mail. The guest bed, once for grandkids, became a resting spot for things that didn't belong anywhere else. And despite her best intentions, peace seemed to shrink, little by little, behind the pile she didn't notice growing. She wasn't collecting junk. Everything had meaning, or at least a memory attached. A book from her sister. A baking dish she swore she'd use. A puzzle missing just one piece, but maybe it'll turn up. Odessa wasn't a hoarder. She was just someone who cared. But the caring turned into keeping, and the keeping turned into clutter. Quiet, polite clutter that never asked permission to stay. One afternoon, while searching for a pair of gardening gloves, she realized something. The things making her home feel heavy weren't all from the past. Many had only just arrived. A package from a friend. An impulse item from TV. A box of canned goods she meant to organize. In fact, she could trace most of her frustration back to things that had entered her space in the last month. That's when Odessa made a small but powerful decision. She would stop trying to declutter her entire house. Instead, she'd focus only on what came in during the last 30 days. That was it. 1 month. One manageable window. And that simple shift, shining a spotlight on just the most recent stuff, became the turning point that brought clarity back to her life. Not because she downsized, not because she gave up the things she loved, but because she finally paid attention to what was quietly asking to stay. Here's a truth no one tells you about clutter. It's not about the past, it's about the last 30 days. Most seniors think their homes feel crowded because of items they've kept over decades. But in reality, it's what quietly enters your home month after month that slowly steals your space. You don't live with everything you own. You live with what you actually see, touch, and use this month. Think about that. The boxes in the attic? The stuff in the far back closet? It's not bothering you. But the stack on your table, the mystery bag near the chair, the kitchen tool that never made it to the drawer, those are the things you trip over. Physically and mentally. That's why 30 days is your secret window. It's your chance to catch clutter while it's still visible. Because after about a month, your brain does something sneaky. It adjusts. It stops noticing. That pile becomes normal. That bag becomes invisible. The mess doesn't go away. It just gets harder to recognize. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Most clutter starts as something temporarily useful. A coupon, a brochure, a small appliance you used once. It came into your home with good intentions, but stayed without permission. And since seniors often value resourcefulness, we tend to hold on to things just in case. But in doing so, we don't realize we're building invisible walls around our daily comfort. Want a quick test? Stand in any room of your home and ask yourself, when's the last time I touched what's on that chair in the corner? Or that shelf above the coffee maker? Or the stuff on top of the fridge? If you can't answer, it's probably past its 30-day window. This method doesn't ask you to throw away your history. It just asks you to notice what's quietly creeping in now. Here's a little challenge for today. Look around and spot one thing that came into your home in the last month, but hasn't moved since. What is it? Tell us below. You might be surprised how many others found the same thing. Odessa didn't need a full house overhaul or a weekend purge to get her space under control. What she created instead was a simple but powerful habit, one that worked better than any organizing system she'd tried before. Just inside her front door, she cleared a small table and placed a medium-sized basket on top. On it, a handwritten tag read, "This month only." That basket became her quiet gatekeeper, a boundary between the outside world and the peaceful home she was determined to protect. Everything new went in there. Not some things, everything. Mail, grocery items she wasn't sure she needed, little gadgets she picked up from the hardware store, impulse purchases, church handouts, coupons, even gifts from friends or family. If it wasn't already part of her home, it wasn't allowed to blend in just yet. And it definitely didn't earn a drawer, cabinet, or permanent spot until it had passed the test of time. But Odessa didn't operate on quick instincts. She gave each item a full 30 days to settle in that basket. That month-long pause allowed her to live with the idea of the item before emotionally committing to it. After the 30 days, she would gently go through the contents and ask herself 3 honest questions. Did I use this? Did I truly need it? Would I even miss it if it were gone tomorrow? If the answer to all 3 was no, she let it go. Without guilt, without the pressure to justify keeping it just in case. And more often than not, that's exactly what happened. The basket wasn't just a holding place for clutter. It became a filter for her peace of mind. It stopped things from disappearing into drawers and becoming forgotten clutter. It helped her break the habit of letting stuff enter without evaluation. Even sentimental items, like a handmade craft from a neighbor or a mug from her daughter, had to wait there. And during those 30 days, the emotional attachment often faded just enough for her to see the item clearly. This 1-month filter changed how Odessa lived in her home. She didn't throw away everything. She just stopped letting everything stay by default. In her house, it felt lighter, clearer, more hers. Every item she kept it earn its place. And that made all the difference. Odessa never saw herself as someone who needed to declutter. Her home wasn't buried under chaos. But still, every surface seemed to hold just a little too much. Her kitchen counter always had something extra. The bathroom shelf had more bottles than she used. Her nightstand? A magnet for things she didn't even remember setting down. That's when she created a weekly ritual she called her 30-day surface sweep. A gentle, no-pressure way to stay ahead of clutter without ever doing a deep clean. Once a week, Odessa chose just one surface in her home. Not a whole room, not a full project, just a single space like the coffee table, the dresser top, a bookshelf, or the little ledge by the sink. She stood in front of it, looked at each item, and asked herself 2 simple questions. Have I used this in the last 30 days? Will I use it in the next 30? If the answer to both was no, the item didn't stay. She didn't spend time debating. If she wasn't using it and didn't expect to, it was gently removed. And if she wasn't sure, she placed it in her this month only basket near the door for a second chance. This simple practice gave her permission to let go of everyday clutter that had quietly settled in. Like the half-used lotion bottle she stopped liking, or the flashlight that didn't work but sat on her side table for convenience. Even the collection of pens on the kitchen counter, only 2 of which actually worked. And because she tackled just one surface at a time, Odessa never felt overwhelmed. There was no emotional fatigue, no dread, just 10 peaceful minutes once a week where she reconnected with her space and made intentional choices. Over time, those small sweeps added up. Her nightstand was clear again. Her bathroom felt calm. Her kitchen no longer had that permanent pile in the corner. And the best part? She never once had to do a major purge or a weekend-long project. The 30-day surface sweep wasn't about being perfect. It was about being aware. It taught her that clutter isn't about volume, it's about visibility. And by checking in weekly, she made sure the things around her were still serving her life today, not just lingering from yesterday. Odessa never believed in exhausting herself with deep cleaning or long decluttering sessions. She wasn't the type to pull everything out of a closet and spend the afternoon sorting. What worked for her was simple, steady habits, gentle rhythms that fit naturally into her life without creating stress. That's why, in addition to her weekly surface sweep, she leaned on a surprisingly easy little routine she called a commercial check. Each evening, after dinner, she'd unwind in her favorite chair and turn on a show, something calm and familiar. During the commercial breaks, instead of scrolling through her phone or flipping channels, she'd quietly get up and choose one small spot: a drawer, a catch-all bowl, a corner of the desk, even the junk tray in the hallway. She wasn't trying to organize or overhaul anything. Her only goal was to find one thing she no longer needed. Just one. Maybe it was a dried-out pen, an expired vitamin bottle, a random screw she had no idea what it belonged to. Or maybe it was a little item tucked away that brought a pang of sadness, something from a chapter of life she'd already lived through. She let herself be slow with it, thoughtful. And then, when the show came back on, she returned to her chair, item in hand, quietly proud of the space she'd just reclaimed. Over time, this tiny practice added up. Without even realizing it, Odessa cleared dozens of small areas, gently, consistently, without ever feeling like she was doing chores. She even found it helped her process deeper emotions. Like the day she let go of a piece of her late husband's old fishing gear, she whispered, "I'm not throwing him away. I'm making space to live forward." The commercial check wasn't a task. It was a pause, a chance to reconnect with her home, one breath at a time. And because it was tied to something she already did every night, watching TV, it never felt like extra work. If you're someone who feels overwhelmed by big decluttering projects, this kind of habit might be just what you need. One small step during the quiet moments. That's how peace returns. Clutter doesn't always come from what we buy. It often comes from what we believe. And for Odessa, the biggest turning point wasn't a new bin or a label. It was learning to catch the emotional triggers that were silently filling her space. She started noticing patterns, not in the stuff itself, but in the way she thought about it, the decisions she made without realizing, the invisible permission slips she kept handing to clutter. Here are the 4 most common traps she identified, and how she gently stepped around them. 1. Just in case thinking. This is the voice that says, "I might need this someday." It sounds responsible, but it's how we end up keeping broken chargers, lids with no containers, extra vases, and kitchen gadgets we haven't touched in years. Odessa used to hold on to things just in case, until she realized most of those cases never came. And when they did, she didn't even remember where she'd stored the item anyway. 2. Gift guilt. That handmade blanket from a niece, the candle from a neighbor, the magnet from a church event. Odessa cherished the people, but not always the objects. Still, guilt whispered that letting go meant being ungrateful. Eventually, she reframed her thinking. The love is in the giving, not the keeping. Once she believed that, she was free to bless others with items she didn't use. 3. Rotating piles. This one surprised her most. It wasn't hoarding, just the quiet habit of moving things from one surface to another. A magazine on the table would shift to the counter, then to the bedroom, then back again. Odessa realized these items weren't part of her life. They were in the way of it. If something moved around without being used, it was time to remove it. 4. Repeat buys. Odessa once bought the same pair of gardening gloves 3 times in 1 month. Why? She couldn't find the first 2 under her kitchen sink. That was the moment she stopped laughing and started rethinking. When we don't know what we have, we spend money, time, and space repeating the same clutter cycle. She didn't beat herself up for these habits. She just started noticing them. That awareness became her secret weapon. By catching the pattern early, she no longer needed big cleanouts because the clutter never got a chance to settle. Odessa's home doesn't look like one of those minimalist magazine spreads. There are no cold white walls, no empty bookshelves, no harsh corners. Instead, her space feels exactly like her, warm, lived in, peaceful. Everything has its place, and more importantly, everything has a reason to be there. What she created wasn't a sterile house. It was a home with breathing room. Her favorite blanket still rests on the arm of her chair. Family photos line the hallway. Her late husband's watch sits on the dresser, quietly honoring his memory. But gone are the piles, the doubles, the unused gadgets, and the things that filled space instead of serving life. Now, when her grandkids come over, they pull out puzzles and spread them across the coffee table, a surface that used to be too cluttered for anything but mail and magazines. She doesn't have to clear it first. It's ready, open, inviting. In the kitchen, Odessa finds joy in cooking again. Not because she bought new appliances, but because she can see what she owns. Her utensils are easy to reach. Her pantry isn't stuffed with expired cans. Her counters aren't hiding under a maze of containers. Everything she needs is accessible, and everything else is gone. Even in the evenings, her peace is tangible. She settles into her chair without the weight of a to-do list whispering from across the room. She no longer scans the space thinking, "I should do something about that." Instead, she smiles, knowing she already did. Letting go didn't make her lose anything. In fact, it gave her more room to live, more time to rest, more energy to enjoy. And what she kept feels richer now because it's not buried beneath the things that didn't matter. As Odessa says, "I didn't downsize my life. I finally made space for it." That's the power of mindful living. Not sacrifice, but freedom. Not emptiness, but clarity. And in that calm, she found something even more important than organization. She found herself again. It doesn't take years of clutter to feel overwhelmed. Sometimes it only takes 30 days. A few unchecked packages. A couple of things you meant to return. A gift you weren't sure what to do with. Suddenly, your space feels tighter, and your mind does too. But here's the good news. The same 30 days that allowed clutter to sneak in can also be your way out. Not through drastic cleanouts or overwhelming weekend projects, but through small, intentional choices made one day at a time. You don't have to throw everything away. You don't even need to change your whole routine. Just begin by noticing. Notice what comes in. Notice what gets used. Notice what quietly lingers without adding anything to your life. Because when you give yourself the gift of awareness, clarity follows. Your home begins to feel calmer. Your days feel more open. And you begin to realize that peace doesn't come from having less. It comes from choosing what matters more. If this video helped you feel even a little lighter, a little more in control, or just a little more hopeful, tap that like button. Share it with a friend or a loved one who might need the same gentle reminder. And if you'd like more guidance, more simple strategies, and more encouragement for living with intention after 60, subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors. You're not alone in this. We're walking it with you. Don't wait until next month to feel better in your space. Start noticing what's around you today.